there is breaking news from San Bernardino, California. It appears that there has been a mass shooting at a social services building there.
December 2nd, 2015 was a game changer in the United States in terms of the response to terrorist incidents.
A holiday party under siege. Survivors on stretchers. Witnesses with their hands up.
They seen bodies on the floor.
She kept saying, "I'm so scared right now."
A community on edge as SWAT teams and armed vehicles race through the streets.
This is insane. This is crazy.
Situational awareness is the key in a scenario like this, to be understanding what is going on, not just locally, but globally. Local is global, global is local. I like that term, because if you understand what is going on in the world around you at any given time, you have a better understanding of what may happen in your backyard. I just want to ask a quick question. Everybody close your eyes for 2 seconds and point every exit you can think of in the room. Just take a second. Very good. Most of you have an idea, some of you have no clue. Exits are key back to the prevention. If you know how to escape, you're much better off. If you have not taken active shooter training, run, hide, fight, I strongly urge you back to the prevention approach. That awareness in an incident will save your life if you're in the right place at the right time. There was a huge response. We don't even know the exact number, but we know more than 400 law enforcement personnel responded to the incident, several hundred fire service personnel responded to the incident, and many, many ambulances. This is the actual site of the attack. This is the IRC Conference Center. This slide demonstrates the myth of the safe zones, the warm zone, hot zone, cold zones. Everybody's heard about active shooter training for EMS personnel, inserting with teams with active force protection, et cetera, et cetera. How do you define a hot zone? You can't. You look at a facility like this. The hot zone in this scenario extended well out over the 3 buildings into much of the parking lot. Why? They did not know where the shooters were, and the paradigm of responding to active shooters was slowly starting to change. This one pushed it over the edge. When you respond to an active shooter incident, you must assume there are IEDs involved until proven otherwise. One of your best sources of immediate information is the media itself. If you have the opportunity to access television directly, internet, etc., try to get that when you're in the command scenario, and you will get immediate situational awareness of that incident. People need to be trained to be flexible, to have the ability to respond to an incident not based entirely on training, but the situational awareness at the moment in time. This is the result of 23 law enforcement officers engaging in about a 10 to 15 minute running gun battle with the 2 suspects. Well over 400 rounds exchanged, IEDs thrown at the LEOs, law enforcement officers. This is the result. Is this warfare, folks? Absolutely. Is everybody in this room considered to be a legitimate target of ISIL and Al-Qaeda of the Arabian Peninsula? Absolutely. What are some of the basic lessons learned? Develop the culture of preparedness. You have to be ready for these incidents, the plans, etc. Be ready. Train, drill, and exercise over and over and over on different scenarios. Develop and maintain situational awareness. Remember, local is global, global is local. What is going on in the world that could possibly affect each and every person in this room? And remember, technology will fail in an incident, but you have to maintain functionality in the face of the threats. Checklists are critical, folks. In the heat of battle, you will forget things. We shall never forget our victims and our friends and colleagues. I think the most important thing is situational awareness, is the understanding of what we call pre-incident indicators, the ability to figure out unusual behavior, report it to the appropriate authorities, and the ability to react immediately if you're unfortunate enough to be in the room where an incident like this occurs. You cannot have the deer in the headlights freeze look. Run, hide, fight, not necessarily in that order, by the way, is something everybody needs to understand and know in our society. Running and hiding, if the shooter's on that end of the room, I'm going out that door. If he's close, I can hide. If I'm right next to him, I am going to go down fighting. And you just have to understand that these are all realities of current society, and you have to go through the training, and more important than just training, you have to prepare yourself mentally to respond immediately when something happens, because you have milliseconds to make a life or death decision.
What we're witnessing in our lifetime is the change from what used to be curative approach to disaster medicine to a preventive approach. Now that's a big deal. That's sort of like saying we're trying to cure diseases and finally we discover a vaccine. So you talk to me about education, talk to me about disaster preparedness and response and so on, I tell you, train, train, train. And looking and studying disasters, and many times afterwards, hurricanes, earthquakes, other types of disasters as well, most people die on the scene without any medical care whatsoever. Now let's think about that. No matter what the disaster, actually, most deaths occur at impact. It occurs when the earth is shaking, when the wind is blowing, when the floodwaters are there, when the fire is at your door. People cannot get to you. Even if they have the best of intentions, it's just impossible to do. So most people die in that first hour. Most disaster-related deaths actually occur in seconds to minutes, and nearly all of them within the first golden hour. 80% of trauma deaths die within the first hour. So we have to think in terms now of bringing disasters up to date, because now this calls into question actually nearly everything we do in response. And why is that the case? Let me share with you. 80% of all disaster victims die before anyone gets to them. So everything we're doing in disaster response in the United States, nearly everything, is actually focusing on 20% of the people. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars trying to save those last 20 that are already saved. So we went from responding to the floodplain to preparing for that inevitable response to floodplain management. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if there wasn't a flood? And so what we're doing now is we're actually changing the focus of what we're talking about here. Normally, you and I would have been dealing with my entire career the risk acceptance, displacement of people, morbidity and mortality, which are deaths and injuries, and then also the loss of livelihood. Most of our efforts in the curative approach to disasters have been on the right side of this scale. But over on the left side, you can see these are the root causes. And if we can stop one of those root causes, our risk of disaster goes to zero. That's how we prevent measles disasters. That's how we prevent smallpox disasters, is your ability to be exposed to that hazard. Number one, smallpox, zero, right? Hazards tucked away in Russia and in Atlanta, as a matter of fact. Exposure, we can prevent your exposure to that particular hazard, so there's another thing we can actually intervene before it happens. And then the third thing is we can affect your vulnerability. So for example, if I immunize you against a disease, then you can be exposed, the hazard can be there, but you still will not become the victim. I want you to learn more about disaster risk reduction and think in terms of how you could reduce the risk, reduce your exposure. For example, one of the things that you need is an evacuation plan. If you have a hazard in your neighborhood or you have family members that are living in an area, then evacuation plan for you personally. It's a big issue. And I know a lot of people have home plans and communication plans and so on, but evacuation plan, I want you to promise me that you'll do that. But first, I want you to promise me that you'll all learn about disaster risk reduction. They'll learn how to apply injury prevention before the disaster. All disasters are local. It's a saying in disaster management. And it really does. All disasters start with some local event. It exceeds their capabilities, moves up to the state, maybe even national, maybe even international. But it all starts here. And since most of those deaths occur early on in disasters, many times in the first hour, then our ability to save lives really lies at the community level. That's where we can really do the most good, not only after the event, but also the communities there before the event. So recognizing these hazards, recognizing who may be vulnerable to those, and being able to do something ahead of time puts us what they call to the left of the bang, before the event happens. What I'm seeing here in Ventura County in particular is that we really have that community approach to this that's lacking in some communities around the world.
I want to start by acknowledging a really important aspect to what we're doing today, and that's looking towards the future. I consider myself an optimist through and through, and yet my optimism is also, I would say, partly filtered and shaded and potentially jaded by a healthy dose of reality.
And we're just getting word in from the city of Houston of a shooting that's happened at Ben Taub Hospital. This hospital is now on complete lockdown after about 30 minutes ago the first calls came in of shots fired.
So this was actually from yesterday, and I've worked with some of those folks that responded to this incident. And fortunately, at least the information that I had up to this morning is that it seems like it was a false alarm.
A preliminary search of every floor, all 6 floors behind us and the basement. We have not found a suspect, and we have not found evidence of an actual active shooter.
It also points to the need in our most vulnerable places and the ones that are the hardest to secure for shot detection systems. We need to embrace technology because it takes the guesswork out. Were there shots fired or weren't there? Do you need to pull patients out onto the street or not? We use technology for everything else. And so part of what we need to do is look and embrace those companies that are doing great work. For example, Guardian does an indoor and outdoor shot detection system that would have ruled out the fact that you didn't need to pull patients out onto the street. What's beautiful about something like this is that it also tells the story of human beings caring and doing what we're supposed to do, and you don't know whether it's a false alarm or not, so you have to follow your instructions and you do it well. Surgeons continued on operating through this entire lockdown. They sent students out of the room. They sent anybody that didn't have to be there, but they kept those operations going. And that's what we all do. We know we do the same. A point that's very relevant in these situations is we often speak about active shooter response and the run, hide, fight model. Law enforcement is getting great training from organizations like Alert. There's a fact, though, that gets neglected, which is that civilians are going to do the heavy lifting. It's the civilians that are there first. So we really have to get civilians on the same page as our run, hide, fight model. We really have to get them exposed to information to make it real enough for them that it is something that they never want to use, but if they had to use, that it would be there for them. It's great that law enforcement is there to stop it. Potentially these things last only just minutes, but they can also last hours in terms of the lockdowns. And it's the things that are uncomfortable for people that are going to make the most difference in their outcome. So for example, I often ask teachers, all right, you've got this model, you've got this run, hide, fight model. Has someone ever shown you the difference between conceal and cover? Conceal just means you're hiding away, and cover means that potentially whatever you're behind is going to stop a bullet. That's an important thing to teach teachers. There's a teacher right now who's looking after your kids who hasn't been shown the simplest task of conceal and cover. The questions I get from teachers are, where should I hide in this room? And sometimes I ask, well, why are you hiding? I see a really nice exit right next to you. Oh, because we were told, hide. I think of this as an incredible video that also shows how real it is in terms of our reactions to these kind of situations.
That deputy right there, keep your hands where I can see him. All the way to that deputy. So you're going to make the left of the deputy's out. Try to relax, everyone. Try to relax. I'll take a bullet before you do. That's for damn sure. Just be cool, okay?
I think these videos do a lot better job than some of the active shooter training videos that are simulations. I know that most people can relate to that in terms of walking out of their office. I know they can relate to the sense of anxiety. I know they can relate to how much relief there is that there's somebody there that will say, I'll take a bullet before you. That's for damn sure. It's videos like this that also build up our community, law enforcement relationships, where this is real. That person's there for you. That person's been training for that moment. With a community response where we all work together to find a solution, we can stop the next tragedy together. To be alive means that you have survival tools. Part of having survival tools is being able to be aware, respond, to understand pattern around you, and to be able to be responsive. And so every human being, whether they're trained or not, carries with them a set of skills that allows us to help ourselves not become victims of harm, and we can also stop other people being harmed. We need to act with love, we need to act with compassion, we need to have healthy science, and most of all, we need to collaborate. With that, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the afternoon.